Welcome into a new edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by R.L. Bynum from the Tar Heel Tribune, live from the Greensboro Coliseum, where the women's ACC tournament is set to kick off here in about 30 minutes. We'll have Matt Alquiza with us from Sports Illustrated here shortly to talk about the NBA. Kyrie Irving tearing his ACL. LeBron out here dropping 40 points on people, his 40-year-old. There's a lot to get into. It's a hoops edition of the Desmond Johnson Show. Let's go ahead and get you started. Let's go ahead and roll that intro.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number one, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your wee whack. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's fourth in inches, I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. You can catch us every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio, and of course on Facebook Watch as well. I said I was going to bring them at 12:45, but considering we don't really have a whole lot of Hornet stuff to talk about, I'm going to squeeze Matt Alquiza on here right now so he can talk a little college basketball with us for a little bit. Matt, representing Hornets on Sports Illustrated. We'll get into NBA talk here in a little bit after we let RL go. But RL, live from the Greensboro Coliseum, the women's ACC tournament getting ready to kick off at 1 p.m. today. Greensboro, beautiful host city. In my opinion, RL, Greensboro should be the host of the ACC tournament every year. I know it won't be. And I know we're coast to coast in the ACC at this point. So Cal and Stanford might not agree with that assessment, but Greensboro is the best host city for the ACC tournament, in my opinion. And I can't wait for it to come back to this area. I want to start off with our Tar Heels real quick. And Matt, I don't know if you got a chance to watch Carolina last night against Virginia Tech up in Blacksburg. It was a sixth straight win for Carolina. I think it's a sixth straight win in a row. They won by 10 plus points. Starting off with you, RL, what has happened? Like, what has happened in the past 2 weeks where Carolina just hit a switch? And what do you think is the number one thing that's happened that's made them kind of refocus and restart this season? It might be too late, but what do you think has happened with this team to get them where they are now? I don't feel as nervous going into Saturday. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to beat Duke, but I don't feel like they're going to get beat by 30 either. So what do you think is the number one thing that's changed with them from what you've seen?
It's a lot of different things that have gone into it. Rebounding is huge. This team wasn't rebounding well, and they're making program history. It's the first time they've had double-digit rebounding margins in 5 consecutive games, in ACC games, in program history.
Wow. Which
is amazing. And you know, this team hasn't gotten any taller. They still have the height disparities, but they're doing better. Vidal Lubin had 11 rebounds yesterday, but it's also the three-pointers. Season high 15 last night. And, you know, the whole surge here at the end of February kind of has the 2022 vibes. And then added to that, this is the first time they've had 3 consecutive games with at least 10 three-pointers than the first 3 rounds of the 2022 NCAA tournament. So, I mean, if they're making 15 three-pointers a game, they're going to give a lot of teams a good run. And then they're playing better defense without fouling. And, you know, Vidal Lubin has just been so productive when he gets the ball inside.
Yeah,
I get the feeling that that's going to be a little harder against Malawatch on Saturday, though. So we'll see how that goes.
The last night felt like a fever dream watching that game. Like it got to a certain point, like Virginia Tech was up by 2, like towards the end of the second half, and then they just went on like a 15-1 run or whatever. It just blew them out. And then I was thinking, all right, it's Carolina, it's this year's version of Carolina. Let's see what they do coming out of halftime. Let's see if they let off the brakes. And they didn't. They just kept going. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this team can actually run. It's funny. I never thought ever in my life I would ever say these words, but they remind me of NC State last year at this point of the season, where they kind of got hot. They're a mismatched group of a roster, not really supposed to be doing this. And then they just started toppling teams they weren't supposed to beat. Like they got to a point where they beat Duke. They beat Carolina in the ACC tournament final. They beat Duke again in the Elite Eight. Like they started having this kind of this weird vibe about them that like they finally figured it out. Matt, as a normally you report on NBA stuff, but of course you got to keep up with the college world as well, especially covering the Charlotte Hornets, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have a top 2 pick when this is all said and done. Your thoughts on Carolina and what you've seen from afar? Do you think Carolina can give Duke a game on Friday or on Saturday night on senior night in Chapel Hill, or is this just fool's gold we've been dealing with over the past 6 games with the Tar Heels?
Yeah, I mean, you said the key word right there, senior night in Chapel Hill against Duke. I think Carolina is always live to get Duke a game in that scenario. You said that Virginia Tech was up 2, and then Carolina went on that huge run. That's when I stopped watching. I turned it off to switch over to Warriors-Knicks with Virginia Tech up 2, and then I looked back at the score later, and Carolina won by 32. So, yeah, they went crazy at the end of that first half, beginning of the second half. But yeah, I think Carolina can definitely give Duke a game. It seems like they're playing. I mean, it doesn't seem like they are playing significantly better than they were earlier in the season. Seems like Hubert Davis has found something with this shorter rotation, really only playing 7 guys a ton of minutes. Like Jalen Washington has been playing less and less as the season goes on. So yeah, Carolina's always live as an underdog in a home game against Duke. So looking forward to that one. Although Duke is obviously the more talented team, but how many times in the history of this rivalry have we seen the lesser talented team pull off a win at home?
That's true. And like Jay Billis says, the rival, more often than not, it always delivers. I know it didn't the first go round. I think Tar Heels just kind of got blitzkrieged by this Duke team that's literally beating the brakes off of whoever is in front of them right now. It's crazy. Cooper Flagg is scoring like 28 points a game. He's only playing like 25 minutes because Duke is blowing everybody out, and he's like sitting the last like half of the second half. Do you give the Tar Heels a shot at all on Saturday going up against Duke? And how critical do you think it is to Carolina's chances getting into the tournament in March? Because I don't know what's changed from last night to today, if anything, but they were on the first 4 out of Joe Lunardi's bracketology last time I checked. I think there was 2 teams in front of them. But that could all change. They beat Duke, and that doesn't matter. So, like, what do you think their chances are? What do they have to do past Duke?
Well, going back to the state comparison, where they beat teams they shouldn't beat. Carolina, all 6 games, they should have beat them. So there's a big difference there. But, yeah, they moved up 5 spots in the net to 38th, which is the highest they've been since January. They're in Andy Katz's projection, but vast majority, they're in the first 4 out and still have work to do. As far as the Duke game, Duke's still going to win most likely, but I don't think they're going to just pound Carolina as they did in the first game. I mean, that game was over in the first 5 minutes. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I still don't see a path 9 times out of 10 that Carolina wins, because they still had the height disparity, even with Jalen Withers playing at the 4 and moving Drake Powell to the 3. That's still going to be a problem. But I said 9 times out of 10, maybe it's the 1 out of 10 that Carolina pulls it off. They pull that off, and they're in, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I think they've put themselves in good position, even if they lose to Duke, maybe beat an SMU in the tournament and somebody else. That should be enough. But they've just left themselves such a small margin for error that it still could be a coin flip.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking Malik Brown's not going to be available Saturday, I think, right? The transfer kid for Duke that like the defensive disruptor. He was the one that really stood out to me in the first game, where it felt almost like Duke wasn't even playing defense against Tar Heels. They were playing more like in the passing lanes. Like they were just kind of anticipating the passes and just jumping in the way of them. And it just disrupted everything Carolina was trying to do. They were down like 40-12 or something like early in that game. It was pretty much a done deal. It's the first Carolina Duke game I could think of in my life where I turned it away at halftime and just kept it on my iPad over on the side because something else was on at the same time. and I was watching that instead. I was like, I'm just going to watch this because I can't do this. Like, this is too much for me to deal with right now. But now going into this game on Saturday, I'm like, this is the best I've seen this Carolina team play all year. You're right. They have not grown a single inch in height. So they're still the smallest Carolina team I can remember. But I don't remember Carolina team hitting threes like this. I did have the thought last night, this is not sustainable. Like, this is not sustainable. I don't know how long it's going to last, but there's going to be a night where they're going to chuck up 33s and hit like 5 of them or something. And it's just like, we're like, what happened? Well, they've been shooting like this for the past 2 weeks, and they had no reason to believe it was going to stop. It might be versus Duke. I don't know, but it looks like Carolina's going to be the 4 seed. They'll get the double bye, which means they'll probably get a Clemson or a SMU or a Wake Forest before they even got further into the tournament. I'm looking at like, I think Carolina can get to the ACC championship game at the way they're playing right now, depending on the path in front of them. They may need to do that. In order to do that, they're going to probably pick up a quad one against one of those 2 or 3 teams, Clemson, like somewhere. They're going to have to beat one of those teams to get there. But that might be the way that they have to do it in order to get to the tournament. Any words as you prepare to, before we let you go, as you prepare to start to cover the women's tournament in Greensboro? The women are loaded, correct? In the ACC, there's a number of nationally relevant squads. It's not like the men's side this year, but there's only 3 ranked teams.
Yeah, there's no resemblance. The ACC might get 8 or 9 teams in the women's field, and it's crazy. And I don't know how many women's games you watch, but I've seen a lot more entertaining women's games than men's games this season. Although last night was fairly entertaining, but it's a situation where ACC has 2 or 3 teams that could make the Final Four. So
keep an eye on it. I know NC State's good. Notre Dame's kind of had a little bit of a skid past a couple games, if I'm not mistaken, but they were like the number 1 seed for the longest. And then they started dropping a couple. Carolina's been playing well. So there's a number. I'm the past couple years in particular, I've really started watching the women's tournament in March, and credit that maybe to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all that. South Carolina, they've had the better storylines, in my opinion, in terms of what to follow. And I'm interested in Juju Watkins and like, I love the growth of the women's game in college basketball right now, and I love that the ACC seems to be the epicenter of all of it right now. I just wish that the men's side could figure out what are the women doing that we're not doing to make this work, because it almost feels like, and Matt, maybe you can talk about this, the talent level in the ACC seems lower than I've ever remembered it in my lifetime. And maybe that's the watering down of adding all these additional teams over the past 15 years. Maybe it's NIL money in the SEC and Big Ten. I don't know exactly what the cause is for it, but you can look at teams like Carolina, for example. I don't know, other than Ian Jackson and Drake Powell potentially, I don't know if there's a pro on that roster. Like, I don't know for sure. Duke is the only team I can really think of where I know there's multiple pros potentially on that roster. But even Clemson and Louisville, I don't know for sure if there's a bona fide pro on any of those rosters. And you go over to the SEC, they're literally playing top 25 games against each other like every night. Like, there's like 9-10 teams that are ranked in the top 25. So every game's a quad one. And like, you're seeing all these dudes that are going to get drafted. Broom, the kid from Auburn, is probably going to be a top 3, top 5 selection. Your thoughts on the talent drain from the ACC over the past like decade, and do you think there's a fix for it?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if there's a fix for it unless there's more money coming into the conference, right? I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten are the 2 conferences throwing all of the money at sports right now. So they're naturally in this NIL landscape going to be the ones getting the big time talent. You look at the top ESPN top 100 from last year, got it pulled up. Only 3 of those guys went to the ACC, and I guess 4, sorry. 1 to Syracuse, 1 to Miami, 1 to Duke, 1 to Carolina. And, you know, I think the talent level in the ACC has maybe always been a little bit lower than the other conferences, but the ACC was always propped up by the coaches. You know, the Boeheim, the Tony Bennett, the Coach K, Roy Williams, you know, go down the list, all the guys that have retired here recently. I feel like that's kind of always been the ACC's moniker, was not necessarily having the high-end talent across the conference, but having the high-end teams because they were coached by these legends. So I think the talent level maybe is the same, a little bit lower, but it's the coaching drop-off that we're kind of seeing the ACC really suffer from.
And we have touched on that, the drainage of coaching legends from the ACC over the past 8 years due to retirement. Just alone, Coach K, Roy Williams, Boeheim at Syracuse, Larinaga at Miami, Leonard Hamilton's retiring at the end of this year, Tony Bennett at Virginia. Who am I forgetting? I'm probably missing a couple others too, but Mike Breen, Notre Dame. Like, I mean, all these guys that left in this like 5-year pocket, really, and you're bringing in guys like a Hubert Davis or a John Shire who haven't actually done anything yet. I guess Leonard Hamilton's the most tenured coach in the league. After Hamilton retires, RL, who's going to be the oldest or the most tenured coach in the league?
Brad Brownell will be the dean, pardon the term, of the ACC.
It felt like he was on the verge of getting fired every year. The first like 7 years he was the head coach at Clemson or whatever, and got a long enough rope to be able to turn around. And now Clemson's a top 15 squad, and they've been to the Elite Eight. And did they get to the Final Four?
A win away from making the Final Four last season.
Yeah, they were close to getting the Final Four last year. So, so watch out for Clemson. We're getting closer to March Madness, and even though it's just Duke, Clemson, and Louisville, they're pretty much guaranteed slots in. I think Carolina is going to probably figure out a way to get in there. I think Wake has just messed this up too much the past 2 weeks to get in. The 3 losses they've had in the past couple of weeks, I think, just have done them in, unless they win the ACC tournament or something, but I don't really see that happening either. And then SMU hasn't really had a marquee win all year, amazingly enough, but their RPI is high, and maybe they sneak in, but I think they were on the outside looking in too. So I will say this: if Carolina gets into the tournament, like you said, RL, it does have echoes of 2022 where they might be a 10 seed or a 9 seed or something. But at that point, you're just hooping. Like, I don't think any team's going to really want to see Carolina at that point. Not to say they're this like invincible squad, but at the end of the year, you don't want to play the hot teams. You don't want to see the teams that are like peaking, and Carolina is definitely peaking at this point. So we'll see how it goes. RL, I know you got to go. I know you got stuff going on at 1 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and let RL go. We will check back with you probably about a week or two after Selection Sunday, and we'll see what's up with the Heels, what happened with them, and we'll kind of go from there. So we're going to say peace to RL. He's down in Greensboro at the Greensboro Coliseum at the women's ACC tournament that's starting today in about 10 minutes, which you'll be able to watch, if I'm not mistaken, on ESPN. So appreciate you coming through, RL, before the tip-off.
You're welcome. Good to talk to you. Good to talk to you, Matt.
All right, there he goes. It's RL Bynum from Tar Heel Tribune. And Matt, real quick before I let you go, I wanted to get into some stuff over in the ACC. I'm not the ACC, excuse me, the NBA. Some things occurred that I was not prepared to occur that have shifted some stuff in terms of what's going on. Of course, the first thing, Kyrie Irving out for the season with a torn ACL, the Dallas Mavericks star. He was the only player in the league that was averaging over 20 points per game, shooting over 40% from 3, and shooting over 90% from the free throw line. Even Steph Curry's not doing all 3 of those things right now. He was having probably one of his best seasons of his career. If you are the Dallas Mavericks, what do you do in this situation now? Do you just like sit Anthony Davis the rest of the year? Do you let him play? Because they were like in the 10th spot for the plan, but clearly they're not going to be able to do anything now with no Kyrie. Not even sure when Anthony Davis is coming back. He might not be back till the end of March. So if you are Nico Harrison, executive of the year, like, what do you do here? What do you do with this situation now with no Kyrie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting AD at this point. I mean, Dallas, their ceiling now is what, losing in the play-in, and if that's your ceiling as a team, you might as well just throw all of your eggs in the Cooper Flag basket. Just get as many lottery balls as possible at that point. They're not going anywhere with AD as their best player without Kyrie Irving. I mean, we talked about it when Luka got traded. It was him and Kyrie creating the offense for everybody, but right now, who's creating offense on the Lakers by themselves? I mean, Max Christie is going to be their number 1 scorer from here on out. Klay Thompson is he's more of a somebody to create shots for him. He's obviously a great play finisher from the 3-point line, but he's not going to handle the ball all the time. So, yeah, if I'm Dallas, pack it up, sit Klay for the rest of the year, make up some fake hamstring injury, sit AD for the next couple of weeks, and then run it back in October with a fresh top 10 pick in tow, and kind of see if you can bide your time until Kyrie comes back this time next year.
Kyrie does have a player option for next year that he can opt into for $44 million, so he can come back to Dallas. Although I've seen a lot of people go, that's the last time he's going to play in Dallas. He's going to be in LA next year playing with the Lakers and Luka and LeBron. I'm like, don't say that because that could actually happen. And I'm a Laker fan. I'm like, I wanted Kyrie and LeBron there like 4 years ago. Like when Kyrie was bouncing all over the place, like LA should go get him. Now I'm like, LA might go get him. So like, I don't know, but you're right. I think they should sit AD. A adductor strain, that's kind of tricky. Like you don't know how long it's going to be. And you kind of got him at this point, Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd, they need to make sure that this trade, not necessarily that they want it, but that they didn't ultimately lose it. And like to ultimately lose it would be to throw AD out there just to have him out there. Dallas is in the play-in game or something. They lose. So they miss out on everything you just said, the draft wise and everything else. And for what? Like you're not guaranteed Kyrie's going to re-sign the player option. Half your team is hurt like right now. I mean, one of the Martin twins is on that team. He's hurt. Daniel Gafford's hurt. Like they're all hurt. Like everybody's hurt. So it comes a time that I think there's only like 20 games left in the season to maybe call it a wash. Last night too, LeBron James, first player in NBA history to score 50,000 combined points. The Lakers have won 17 of their last 20 games. They are now second in the West. Are they a legit championship contender, Matt? Because I think LeBron came into this season thinking, I'm going to break Kareem's record, and then I'm just going to kind of coast because we don't have the squad available to contend in this loaded Western Conference. But then you land a top 3 in the league player and Luka Doncic in a trade, and now I'm looking at the Lakers like they actually got enough to get out of the West. Like they have more than enough to get out of the West with the way that they're playing. Are you surprised that the Lakers are playing like this? Are you surprised LeBron and Luka are playing as well together as they are? Because we didn't know if it was going to work at first.
Yeah, not surprised they're playing as well. I mean, I've been saying since the trade happened, I think they're a perfect basketball fit. I mean, I think I've said it on here, but just this idea of LeBron tilting the defense to his side of the floor, and he's throwing a skip pass. It's not Rui Hachimura. It's not Jared Vanderbilt breaking down a tilted defense. It's Luka Doncic, the third or fourth best player in the league. Like that was always going to work if those guys are humble enough to play off the ball, and I think we've seen both of them are. I mean, I'm surprised with their defense. They're the number 1 defense in the league in the past 3 or 4 weeks. And JJ Redick said it. He said the most underrated aspect of success in the NBA is playing hard and playing with effort. And you watched that game last Saturday, Lakers at Nuggets. They were swarming Jokic. Those guys were playing with their hair on fire for 48 minutes on defense. And if they can keep that effort up, I mean, there's nothing stopping them from making the NBA Finals and taking on either Cleveland or Boston. Ooh. I mean, it would be shocking, but I see there is a very, very clear path for the Lakers to make it out of the West right now.
Yeah, because I don't know if anybody the 1 seed's Oklahoma City, and I don't know if anybody fully believes Oklahoma City is ready for prime time yet. They've never made it to the conference conference. Well, this group has not made it to the conference championship in the Western Conference. They do have like a huge, it's like 11-game lead or something like that. I was looking at the standings a minute ago.
They're historically good statistically. Like they have this incredible record. They're blowing everybody out. Shea is putting up 50 points weekly right now, it seems. But like you said, they've never been there. It is Shea and Jalen Williams and a bunch of guys that are kind of the 3-point shooters, good defenders. So if Shea's offense dries up in the playoffs, I don't know who scores for Oklahoma City if he's not the one creating shots for everybody else.
Another team to keep an eye on in the West is the Golden State Warriors. Ever since the trade when Jimmy Butler came over, I think they're 8-1, 9-1 with Jimmy in the lineup or something like that. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 2 straight. They are 34-28. They're in the 6th seed right now, so they're not even in the play-in. And they're only 3 games behind the Houston Rockets for 5 and 4 games behind Memphis for 4. And they keep playing like this. Those teams I just mentioned, Houston's lost 3 straight, Memphis has lost 3 straight, and Denver's lost 1. So Golden State and the Lakers, they seem to be the 2 to keep an eye on in the West. Meanwhile, in the East, Cleveland, I don't know if I know they were good last year, but it felt like it was early. I'm looking at them this year like, are they really this good? They're 51-10. They have the best record in the NBA. They're 10-0 in their last 10, or they've won 11 straight. They're just winning. They're just winning these games by a lot. They're up 8 games on Boston for the 1 seed. Boston's comfortably in the 2. The Knicks are in 3rd, followed by the Bucks, and then you got Pacers, Pistons. The Pistons are in the 6th seed, which still blows my mind that they've turned this around. But are you buying Cleveland as a legit championship contender? Because you just mentioned them. potentially facing the Lakers, and you know the NBA would love either one of those storylines. They're always down for a Lakers Celtics NBA Finals, but a Lakers Cleveland final where LeBron is facing his old team, and I mean that writes itself too. Are you buying Cleveland as a contender right now?
Yeah, 100%. Especially after that game on Friday, they're down 23-5 against Boston in the first quarter. Jason Tatum is telling them to get out the arena, and they come back and win that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boston didn't have Porzingis or Drew Holiday, but I think I've heard people say this, and I believe it. Donovan Mitchell is not scared of the Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell, I think he's honestly one of the best playoff performers in the past 10 years. If you think what he did with Utah in the bubble, he had that 50-point game against the Clippers the year after in the playoffs. I think Donovan Mitchell is the kind of guy that can very, very much lead a playoff offense. And then Cleveland, they go 8 deep of guys that you can trust in a playoff series. Their starting lineup is great. They can bring Ty Jerome off the bench. They can bring Max Strus off the bench. They've just got a whole bunch of guys that can play basketball at a high level, and a whole bunch of guys that I can see in a playoff series against Boston not backing down from the defending champs. So definitely taking them seriously. I still favor Boston over them in a series, but I mean, the one intangible thing you said, Cleveland is up 8 games over Boston right now. If that series goes 7, Game 7 will be in Cleveland. And no matter how great a team is, I'm 30 years old. I've seen 100 times at this point a team wins a Game 7 at home. I mean, that is one of the hardest things in basketball to do, is go win a Game 7 on the road. So Cleveland earning that home court advantage throughout the playoffs and throughout the NBA Finals. So they have a better record than OKC right now. So they get to the finals, they're going to have home court there as well, which it matters in basketball. So yeah, Cleveland very much a serious championship contender how they're playing right now.
The road to the NBA championship goes through Cleveland.
This Cleveland team, not a LeBron Cleveland team. When's the last time we said that, right?
And then finally, of course, we got to check in on the Charlotte Hornets. Since I have you on, Hornets on SIP writer Matt Alquiza joining us here on the Desmond Johnson Show. The Hornets. Good news, Hornets fans. You're currently second worst record in the NBA. Only Washington has less wins than the Hornets do. 1-9 in their last 10 games. They've lost 7 straight games, Matt. There's only 22 games left this season. I'm sure your mind has started to shift towards the draft. And we had you on earlier on in the show talking college basketball. Of course, Cooper Flagg is like the prize or whatever. And I know there's been talks of he wants to come back for a second year at Duke and all this other stuff. That's not going to happen. People can just I don't care how much NIL money they throw in them. And you described this beautifully last week in terms of wanting to get to that second contract, that first max contract. You're pushing that off a year by doing this. And we already know he's leaving because he reclassified to get to Duke this year. And he's not even supposed to be there this year. He's supposed to be a senior this year and be there next year. He reclassified in his class so he could go early because they want to get to the league early. So Cooper Flagg's going to be available. If the Hornets finish with the second worst record, ping pong balls have them coming out with the number 2 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Who's a guy this week that you're looking at he would work? He would work as the number 2 overall pick behind Cooper Flagg, and he would actually work well in Charlotte's roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are 2 different scenarios here. Scenario 1, they don't trade LaMelo Ball this offseason, which now there's some steam picking up around the idea of moving LaMelo this summer. If they don't trade LaMelo and they run it back with the core that they have right now, Ace Bailey is the guy that I'm looking at number 2 at Rutgers. Really, if you're looking to scout college basketball right now, kind of look at a couple of guys who the Hornets could pick. Rutgers is a great watch because they have the number 2 and number 3 prospects in the draft on the team right now. They're really bad. I mean, they're not even close to competing in the Big Ten, but if you're interested in looking for future NBA prospects, watch Rutgers. But yeah, 2 scenarios. They keep LaMelo Ball. They still continue to try to build around this core. It's Ace Bailey. 6'10", incredible scorer, can't really do anything else, isn't a great passer, a bit of a ball stopper, but the Hornets have the worst offense in the league, historically bad in the past 2 months. They need guys that can get buckets. Ace Bailey is that guy. If they move on from LaMelo Ball this summer, if they decide, hey, we're Jeff Peterson, it's year 2 on the job, he's trying to remake this franchise in his image, they trade LaMelo Ball, they get a couple of picks back, they get a couple of young pieces back, I think they draft Dylan Harper at number 2 overall. He's the point guard of Rutgers. Just like your true classic downhill, can get to the rim point guard, really, really good shot creator for himself, for teammates, and also is a pretty good shooter. he's kind of like a little bit smaller version of Cade Cunningham is what I've seen people compare him to. So really just like your classic floor general point guard, but is pretty adept at getting to the rim and creating shots for his teammates as well. So Rutgers, if you're looking to scout college basketball for the next week into the tournament, into the conference tournament, because they won't be playing in the NCAA tournament, watch a couple of Rutgers games between now and
Rutgers isn't really all that good overall, though, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, they're, bottom half of the Big Ten, not going to make the NCAA tournament unless they make some NC State miracle run through the Big Ten tournament.
That's so crazy. But they've got some pros playing on their starting five. So, and that's what I'm kind of turning my attention to too, because if you're a Charlotte Hornets fan, like I've been since their inception, you're well aware of the history of the number one pick in the Charlotte Hornets. Like it's been like they're allergic to it or something. It's only happened once. We've only gotten it one time, and that was Larry Johnson. That was back in 1991. And ever since then, they could have got there's a number of them. Dwight Howard, Wemby, Anthony Davis. And instead you got that's the thing I'm worried about because the guys we end up picking after them, like Emeka Okafor or Michael Gilchrist, number 2. Oh gosh, it's like I'm afraid that's going to happen with them with such a high draft pick, and then it makes the season feel even worse. That okay, you went through this whole season, you end up drafting this guy, and it's like it doesn't even fit or anything. So that's why I'm kind of like, just bottom out, man. It's okay. We're not going to look at you any different, Charlotte, than what we already do. If anything, we might admire the fact that you decided to bottom out with 20 plus games to go. Sit LaMelo. Sit some of these dudes. Because LaMelo's not going to get any better playing in these 20 games. I mean, I thought about it from what you said last week that he needs the reps. But is he really going to get better playing with players that he's probably not going to be playing with next year? Two-way guys and dudes that are just filling the roster while the Hornets are getting beat by 20. Like, is this really productive for his draft value? I mean, was his trade value? I don't think so. I hope they don't trade him. I would like to see them see this through and actually get another piece, preferably Cooper Flagg, because I do think Cooper is that missing piece with what they have. You have Brandon Miller out there healthy, LaMelo out there healthy, Miles Bridges out there healthy. Somehow Mark Williams is back here with us. I don't know what's going to happen with him in the offseason if he'll stay or go. And Cooper Flagg at the 4. Keep them together for 2 years, 3 years. You're Oklahoma City, like literally at that point. You're the Timberwolves, like you're the Rockets, like you're the Detroit Pistons. Like if you could just keep them all together, but in patience and let's get rid of LaMelo. Let's bring this in and just moving pieces around all the time. That's what causes what's happened in Charlotte, the malaise over the past decade or so, I think. So I don't know. I can't imagine being a beat writer for the Hornets right now and looking at the calendar going, ooh, there's 20 more games of this. Like, what are we gonna?
Honestly, man,
you and Skylar, what are y'all doing to pass the time over there?
Yeah, more fun to watch some of the guys that are coming to town. Like tonight, the T-Wolves are in town, so get to watch Anthony Edwards. Cleveland's here on Friday. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. Yeah, you find ways to get excited to go, but unfortunately, I'm not excited to watch the Hornets much these days.
So all we can hope is that they bottom out and Cooper Flagg stays in the state of North Carolina and becomes the Hornets' #1 overall pick. We can only hope. So we'll see if that goes down. Shout out to R.L. Bynum, who is now comfortably in his seat in the Greensboro Coliseum, reporting on the women's tournament. I think it's on ESPN or ESPN2. You can watch that there. Shout out to Alquiza coming through. He's going to be with us on Wednesdays talking hoops as we get through March Madness and get deeper into the NBA playoffs. So we won't have to talk about Hornets after a couple of weeks here. We can shift our focus to the good teams in the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
Friday, we'll have Ryan Smith and former NFL tight end Ben Troop in the house. They're the hosts of Winning the Division podcast. They're going to talk some NFL free agency. We'll have some surprises too here on the upcoming episode on Friday. So stick around with us. Rate and subscribe, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. We will see you on Friday.